What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining us this evening. A lot of us have heavy hearts. We want to talk about Alton Sterling and the shooting that occurred in Louisiana. First, before we get rolling with our opinions, I want to show the actual video footage. A lot of you have probably seen the first video footage, but within the last 6 hours or so, a second video has emerged, so I'm going to go ahead and play that video now. It's graphic, so please be advised. And so many of you, unfortunately, had to witness that. For those that aren't kind of up to speed on what's going on with the case overall, Alton Sterling, 37-year-old man based out of Louisiana, um, obviously, as you can see with the video there, shot and killed by two police officers. Basically, a 911 call came in about a man basically being Alton Sterling, wielding a gun, so to speak, although reports came out from the shop owner in which he was standing in front of with said gun, reported that he was only there to sell CDs. And the cops came and basically the first video showed one of the cops tackling him to the ground, slamming him into the car, and then it basically picks up kind of where the second video showed you, Alton Sterling being pinned to the ground forcefully by one officer while the other officer pinned his hands down against him. The second officer in question yelled, "He's got a gun." The first officer drew his weapon. The second officer kind of wrestled with him a little bit, and then all of a sudden the shooting occurred. He was shot multiple times, despite not being able to even defend himself in any manner or putting up a resistive fight at all. With that, the police chief in Louisiana for the department was interviewed and said an investigation will be basically forthcoming. The two officers have been put on paid administrative leave. That's protocol. So for those that have gotten upset that they should not be getting anything, while this is going on, that is, basically protocol. Mike, I want to roll to you, and basically you've seen both videos. I want to get your opinion on what you think of the video, and then we're going to go to Matt next.
Videos speak for themselves. I mean, there's nothing I can say that can make it any more clearer. I just hope that there's a non-biased review. I know the U.S. Justice Department is stepping in, the FBI, they're doing an independent investigation on it, not being handled by the state of Louisiana or the Baton Rouge Police Force. I think adds some transparency to it, and in addition to that, adds some, takes it out of their hands, because you have a situation where their officers were involved in a fatal shooting, and it wouldn't be fair, it wouldn't be right for the same department responsible for the shooting to investigate the shooting of their officers. So, I'm intrigued as more and more keeps coming out today. Obviously, it's like the typical, person shot by a police officer. And, the media is going into their race baiting mode where it's black man shot by police, where it's, they're digging up his past as if it relates to this at all. And at the same time, eyewitness accounts are being thrown in. The owner of the shop, who was present at the time of the shooting and witnessed it, has has said in interviews um, that Alton had a pistol in his pocket and was not reaching for it, was not brandishing it at the time he was confronted by the police, and that his hands were bound. He was forced to the ground by police, which is obvious from the first video. And it's just a really uneasy feeling right now. I just feel as though this is becoming the new normal in America, where someone is being shot by the police and the media only focuses on the racial element, only on the, black man shot by police, but there are tons of people shot throughout this nation. A large percentage of them are minorities. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's an alarming look on police procedures and how police operate. Because on the one side, you have parts of society, and you can even break it down by class. You have people who, every time they've encountered police, they've been positive experience. They have had positive experiences with police. But on the other side of the equation, you have people who have had negative or mixed experiences with police at best. And it's like, it's hard for someone who's never experienced the other point of view to understand how police could be seen as bad guys. I mean, we were talking about it before the air, how when we were kids, we would play cops and robbers. And it was pretty much cut and dry. The criminal was the bad guy, the cop was the hero, and that was how it went. But as we grow up and become adults, we start to see that sometimes in these situations, it's not always so clear. Sometimes it's gray areas. And I just hope the investigation reveals the details and that they're objectively shown and justice is served.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think?
When I saw the first video last night, after we got done doing that podcast last night, I jumped on the computer and I see all these posts. So I'm like, what's going on? So I clicked, saw that video. Then you told me about the second video, and I saw that today, and I was like, this is just clear cut, flat out. They murdered this guy. And Mike brought up a very interesting point when he said, people are already starting to try to demonize this guy. That seems to be something that we see all too often, whether it be Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, the gentleman, I forgot his name, the guy that was put in the back in Baltimore and those cops got off in that. I mean, it seems like whenever this happened, you have a certain group of people, a lot of them, that the first thing they go to do is demonize the victim. So it's almost like before anything happens, he must have done it, he must be guilty, screw him, he was a bad guy. It's a terrible thing. And then, I go on a lot of political websites, and of course this is on all of them. And you go into the comments sections, and it's absolutely disgusting, the comments. I mean, I was on a very far-right website today, Breitbart.com, and just to see, because I was interested in what these clowns that go on the comments section were going to say. You're seeing comments like the police deserve a medal, they put another animal down, and it just goes to show you, like, where we really are in this country. We've come a long way, but at the same time, have we really, in a sense? Like, it almost seems like, we had the civil rights movement and all that, but it seems like a lot of these feelings have just been bottled up and they put them away in the closet. And I will stick to this. I don't know how Mike feels or you feel, Pete, but it really does seem like ever since, love him or hate him, ever since President Obama got elected, it seems like all this is coming out. Now you've got a guy like, Donald Trump coming out and spewing a lot of the garbage that he spews, and some of these people feel emboldened now.
Right.
And you see it, and it's terrible. Like, how can change ever be made when you have these idiots who make these stupid comments and feel this way?
For for those that don't really know what Mike and Matt were referring to in regards to kind of bringing up a so-called troubled past, Alton Sterling had he was convicted in 2000 of one count of carnal knowledge of a juvenile and had to register as a sex offender. Has nothing to do with why the police were there. 2009, possession of marijuana with the intent to distribute and illegally carrying a weapon. Nothing to do with why he was there. What does his past painting a man that got shot in cold blood have to do with, that recent event have to do with anything with his past? He could have been Mr., I go to church every day, and done right by everybody. It's still murder in cold blood. Plain and simple. What I find that, is the frustrating part is anybody that's in law enforcement or a higher authority, whether it's the president, Congress, anything, they have basically now it's no accountability or consequence, and they will continue to basically operate outside the law because what accountability is there for them not to? Whether it's something as minor, as, getting a speeding ticket and trying to get out of it, or something as major as, you got Donald Trump on one side, spewing all kind of racial hate. On the other side, you got Hillary Clinton hiding emails and doing all kind of wrong shit herself. So when does this country come to a normal reality that it's not okay for, number one, it's not okay for police brutality, but it's not okay to sit there and fuel the fire by jumping on social media and forums and everything else and say, oh, well, white people don't give a damn about anything that happens with this and that, or everything turns into on the side with white people, oh, that's just blacks killing blacks. No, white people kill black people too, and vice versa. Happens every day. And it's frustrating to me because everybody wants to turn it into a racial background. We talked about, before the air, growing up in different areas. For me, I had, a older brother, who's no longer living, that was a police officer. Many, many, many people at his funeral were all kinds of different races, all over, basically the county and city that loved my brother because he stood for what was right and he was fair. There was many articles written on how he would use his verbal skills to talk a man wielding a gun into handcuffs to save everybody. Not once did he have to use brutal force. That's what I grew up admiring in someone. That's what it's supposed to be about. He would be absolutely sick today. I can 100% say that. The way that law enforcement is abusing their power in some instances. But what I don't want to see is everybody, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, whatever race you are, saying, oh, we hate cops now, we feel unsafe. Not all cops are bad. These are just assholes that were put in a uniform that weren't screened properly beforehand, basically wielding their power and control, and that's what this comes down to. It's brutal murder, and it's not acceptable.
You bring up an interesting point with the screening. It seems like, and maybe it's because of social media, everybody has a camera. I know we all, all three of us were very young when the Rodney King thing happened in Los Angeles. But, I mean, someone just happened to have a camera. Not everybody had a camera back then, though. But I think, so now I think the perception out there is you're seeing it all the time. The other was it North Carolina where the guy was running away, gets shot in the back, someone had their cell phone, they catch it. Obviously. The guy, I think also in North Carolina, cops pulls him over, he gets out of his truck, reaches in for his keys, the cop just shoots him. He didn't die or anything. And obviously the cop went up, he went, oh, I'm sorry, my fault, which there's no excuse.
Right.
I'm sure the guy didn't want to hear. But I think the perception now goes out there because of all these videos that they're bad. There's so many bad apples more. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I think you mentioned a good point with the screening. These guys obviously have a superiority complex, and they think I've got a badge, I can just do whatever the hell I want, and you can't stop me because I know Baltimore, perfect example. They kill that guy, every one of them gets off. New York, Freddie Gray. They can't. And I think they're thinking, shit, I can do whatever I want because no judge is going to find me guilty. He's going to protect me because I am a police officer. I think some of them have that mentality, especially the rogue ones.
And the thing that kills me with the whole thing is, yes, Alton was tasered by the officers. You run, you tackle him. Okay, if he is, just say hypothetically, he's combative and he's fighting back, then you taser him again. In no circumstance did he reach for a gun, anything. There's ways to get around that. Shooting someone is not right if he didn't pose a threat to you.
Right.
The man is on the ground subdued with a knee in his shoulder.
Not to mention he was standing up and they told him get on the ground before forcing him down on the ground.
Right. And under no way is he going to be able to do anything. If I'm on the ground trying to push up on you, you're going to have the advantage standing over top of me no matter how much I weigh, how strong I am, whatever the case, because your force is going downward. So basically, it all came down to one cop, the one that was kind of standing over top of him, not kneeling on him, but basically yells gun. And the first instinct is for the other officer to draw his gun. He waits and sees him basically moving around, and because of the angle, you can't really see what's going on, but you can see his hands are pinned. So why would you shoot him if his hands are pinned? What can he do? What is he going to do? Headbutt your gun out of your hand? You're still overpowering him. So it just doesn't make sense. And then for me, I've been, in situations, and if you can't remain calm under a stressful situation, you don't need to be a cop. You're out there to serve and protect first and foremost. You're not out there to panic and pass judgment first, shoot somebody and ask questions. Oh, my fault. I thought he had a gun. That's not okay. I'm not going to go in full detail, but I was in a situation, basically the only white person and three other, black guys that were good friends of mine growing up. We got pulled over. It was right after 1 o'clock in the morning. For those that, basically live in Georgia, it's off of Glenwood Road, not the best of the best area, but I was driving. We get pulled over, and basically a cop comes up to the window. I asked, can I ask you why I'm getting pulled over? I didn't do anything. He said, step out of the car, and he radios, and next thing I know, here comes a second car. And so I get out, have my hands up, whatever, and he tells me not to move, put my hand on the hood. Basically, he makes the other two, basically stay in the car, and basically, or in the back, and my friend that was basically in the front, he basically has his gun drawn with his flashlight out on him. Here comes the second car, comes up, officer comes up to the side, basically shines the light in, says get out of the car. Basically the two that were in the back tells them to stay there until he gets my friend in handcuffs. I get put in handcuffs. All along I'm asking, what did we do? I didn't do anything wrong. I'm getting yelled at, shut up, and put on the ground. Well, first officer is a white officer, probably I'd say if I had to guess in his 40s. Second officer was a black officer. Finally, third car, while this is going on, third car rolls up. Another officer, female officer, Hispanic. The other officer was another black officer. Well, because I guess it's protocol or whatever, I guess lead officer, the white officer, says that I was speeding. I said, no, sir. I said, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not speeding. Basically, we were coming from hanging out. I said, I don't have any drugs, anything else on me, nothing like that. Well, I had no clue. One of my friends that was in the back had a handgun on him. Never knew that. So basically, they check him, all hell breaks loose. You know, freaking out that there's a gun, all this stuff. What are y'all doing? Y'all are out here late at night. Da, da, da. I get yanked off the ground, slammed back on the ground without getting picked all the way up. And basically, the white officer, in front of the two black officers and the Hispanic officer, basically starts going through the pockets of my other friends, and basically he's making a bigger deal out of them. All I did was get slammed. Never checked my pockets for anything. Never did anything. Then all of a sudden he wants to go over to the other, my friends, because they're black, and start searching them first. So next thing you know, basically they're like, okay, we're putting the one friend in jail, put him in jail, put him in the back. Basically all of us had to wait until our parents showed up and, basically came and got us. They were going to impound, my car, because to be honest, I was a minor. I was 17. And so for me, it was like, that was my first instance of seeing firsthand, okay, well, why didn't I get searched, and why didn't I get, basically, stepped on, different things? Yeah, I got slammed to the ground, but so be it. I could have had a gun, went basically somehow got it out of my pocket or something. Who would have known? He doesn't know me from anybody else. But all along, it's basically, to me, racial profiling. And I look at it as no better for those other officers that were black and Hispanic that let the original white officer do it. They just stood there. And it's like, how do you condone that? Is it like a secret code? And at the time, my brother was alive, and I told him what happened, and his first reaction was, well, you shouldn't be hanging out. I don't condone what happened, but you shouldn't be hanging out that late at night, with stupid people. I told you not to be out, like that. And I explained to him what happened, and he goes, no, that's not protocol. He said, first of all, the first officer should have never got you out of the car without any other officers, present. And he said, second of all, there is no protocol of one officer versus the other or whatever. They could have stepped in and, subdued you just as much as, the first officer did your friends. And basically what he said is what a lot of officers, like you said, Matt, a lot of them have that power trip and, inferiority complex, basically to feel like, okay, I got a badge, I can do whatever I want, I'm going to get away with this. And it's done nothing. I mean, that was, years and years ago, 2001. So nothing has changed in 15 years at all to me, and overall, this man's senseless killing is nothing but putting America on notice to start a racial war, in my opinion, because that's all it's going to do. And I don't get it. But I'm done. So you guys talk.
I mean, that's one of the biggest things, the biggest problems I have with the media, because I'm a student. My major is advertising and marketing. I'm a communications major. And it breaks my heart to read textbooks that are assigned to, to academics, and to read them say flat out, the media is run by elites to control their own ideas to maintain the status quo. And so when I see stuff like headlines on CNN, on Fox News, on whatever, I always think with that first. Like, it's all to get ratings. It's all to get, which generates advertising revenue and things like that, which keeps them on the air, which makes them money and all of that. The problem I have with it is, like you said, Pete, it pretty much pours out the gasoline for the race war, for race baiting. It's just waiting for people to get angry, when this is a time more than ever that we need to come together. We need to come together objectively and realize that there are people dying every day in this country from gun violence. And there are people being shot by police officers in the line of duty. Those are two problems, but they're all related to economics. They're all related to class. They're related to so many different things.
Right.
And so when I see like the news perpetuating this black man killed by police, it immediately draws that line and people kind of pick a side. And the only side that you can really pick in this, if you're for justice, is justice. What's right has to be done. They killed this man. It has to be investigated and determined whether what really happened. And from what's coming out, it's looking really bad for these police officers. Like you, I've been in situations where I've been pulled over. I've been told to step out of my vehicle, just about yanked out of my vehicle, turned around, pushed up against my vehicle, searched, and to the point where I thought I actually stole my own car.
Wow.
That was how serious it was. They pushed me up against my car and asked me questions. Where'd you get this car? You know you got warrants. You know you got tickets and this and that. And I'm like, no, sir, I don't have tickets. At the same time, they're pushing me against my car. They're taking my hat off and throwing it inside the vehicle. And this is before I knew my rights. This is when I was in my early 20s. And they made me do a field sobriety test. So they said that I had been swerving. And I know now that you have to give consent to submit before submitting to that test. And I'm doing my ABCs backwards. I'm walking with my arms out, touching my nose and bullshit like that. And just like that, they let me go. But at the time that all this is happening, 2 and 3 more cars pull up. So it's 4 or 5 police officers on the scene. Then a tow truck pulls up and things get really, really real. Because now I'm sitting here like, what the hell is going on? Like, what is going to happen to me? You know, am I going to jail? Am I about to get shot? Like, what the hell?
Right.
And it was over a sticker in my window. My registration had been expired by 3 hours. It was 3 in the morning. It was like the first of the month. My registration had expired.
Wow.
That was the reason they pulled me over. Your registration is expired. But then it went into, oh yeah, we checked these plates. They got warrants and you got tickets and yeah, well, how come you didn't show up in the court and all of this? And I'm like, because I didn't have a court date, because I haven't done anything. And it's those situations that whenever things like this happen, it comes fresh in my mind. And so I can understand why people are like, oh, forget the cops and this and that, because they've probably been through that. But we can't generalize police the same way that we accuse them of profiling, the same way they profile and generalize us.
Right.
Wrongs don't make it right. And we need police reform in the way they handle suspects to the point where, look, when you pull your trigger, like the Code of the Samurai, completely separate thing, but it's very similar. The Code of the Samurai states, if you unsheath your sword, you must be prepared to do battle. And I feel like there should be some restraint on pulling out a gun and shooting someone. I mean, they have tasers, right? They got nightsticks and flashlights.
And they tasered them beforehand.
Yeah. And it's like, I've seen people get tased on videos. When people get tased, they pretty much drop. It's very rare that somebody cannot be stopped by being tased. Very rarely they have to tase somebody multiple times, or if they're on drugs or something. But seriously, where's the restraint?
Here's the thing that's funny, and I'm not arguing against what you're saying, but if you talk to a lot of people, like especially when the Michael Brown thing happened, they're going to say, well, this is real life. You can't just tase somebody. You can't just shoot them in the leg. You got to shoot to kill. And that's how they're defending these police officers. And I saw some comments yesterday. I don't know if you guys know who Sean King is.
But why are you shooting to kill over a situation like that?
That's what I'm saying.
I can understand that someone comes at you, guns drawn and blazing. But why are you shooting to kill someone who doesn't want to be thrown on the ground?
Yeah, Exactly, but that's what happens a lot of times with the guys who like to defend the police all the time is, well, their life's on the line. You know, they
Right.
don't know this, they don't know this. They had to shoot to kill. It's not the movies. You don't shoot someone in the leg. You
Right.
shoot them. You know, I know being in the military. I know in the military. I don't know how it is in the cops. When you shoot somebody, you shoot center mass. You know, you don't shoot
Yeah.
them in the leg. But I'm not going to compare being in the Navy to being a police officer.
Right.
There's
Right.
just no comparison. But then you have these idiots on these social media, like, I don't know if you guys know who Sean King is, a big social activist, and he tweeted the story out, and so I like clicking on it and seeing the comments, and you have people saying, and this is what I find funny, and I talked to Q about it yesterday. He shouldn't have resisted arrest, and he shouldn't have been armed. And the first thing that pops into my head is, these are the same assholes who are pro Second Amendment. You need to be able to carry. You shouldn't need a permit unless it's a black man. Now all of a sudden he shouldn't have had a gun.
Exactly.
And Mike, you saw it. Pete probably saw it. Byron posted this the Instagram thing on his Twitter. This white man, these two cops are trying to arrest this white man, and he's flailing his arms and he's swinging at these cops. He's hitting them. Not once
They
did
didn't
they
shoot him once.
Not once did they even pull their gun out. Nothing.
Right.
And it's
What?
like, and it's almost, it's almost, you know, you get that it's like, if you're a person of color, because I'll say even Muslims, you're automatically, if you have a gun and you're a person of color, whether you're black, Muslim, you're a suspect, and it sucks.
Yes. Yeah.
Your profile, automatically, you are considered a threat to society if you are a person of color and you have a firearm. Automatically, you're seen as a suspect.
And that's the problem I have with open carry, because I see videos of guys walking through Target and Walmart with rifles, not even just regular rifles, assault rifles, AK-47s. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. You can parade through a department store, a freaking Target, where they sell underwear right next to TVs and Legos.
Yeah.
But I can't have a concealed weapon in my pocket that I'm not reaching for.
Correct.
What world are we living in where this makes sense? What world are we living in? Like, with this open carry law, if I was a gun owner, I would never open carry it.
No. I have something I want to bring up real quick. In the chat room, we got a bunch of people in the chat. I specifically want to hone in on something, and I'm not pissed off, but I feel frustrated because this is what I'm trying to go against. You know, the stereotype of, you know, okay, white people are bad for this or black people are bad for that. Jason Fonseca commented, but he said, but you're still breathing, right? And this is what irks me here, this comment. And you've known since the beginning of time you already have special privileges, even if you do have black friends. And he says, I'm not racist, but I'm just a scared black man. You're black, I'm white, I'm just as scared. Who the hell knows if I'm hanging out with friends of mine, you know, whether they're white, black, whatever, what happens if a similar situation and I get shot in the process? Whatever the case is, it's not about having special privilege or this and that. I don't have any fucking special privilege. You know, I'm from Philadelphia and, you know, mostly raised in Decatur, Georgia. You can't get any more urban than where I grew up. And I'm not going to throw that out there and say, oh, well, I know what it's like for black people or anything like that, because I don't know, you know, only to a certain degree of what I've experienced. But I'm not going to sit there and hear, because of the color of my skin, I have a special privilege compared to somebody else. There are so many educated black people that have special privileges that I'll never see. It doesn't matter the color of your skin to say special privilege. It's basically you don't take shit to the extreme. If you're an officer, you're there to serve and protect. If you're in the government, you're there to protect classified information. You don't do that shit. If I see something going on, I'll give a perfect example. I saw walking out of a subway probably 2 months ago. There was I was ahead of an older white man, probably I'd say in his 60s, maybe late 50s. He had his daughter who obviously had, you know, some special needs. walked out ahead. So I got to see this outside situation. So I'm walking out. He's behind me, basically held the door, but he kind of turned off to throw something in the trash can, so I let the door go. I walk out. I see, straight ahead, I see two black guys getting out of their vehicle. They pull kind of tight to the line. So the black guy had dreads that was in the passenger seat. He kind of had to squeeze out of the door real tight so he didn't hit the car door next to him. Next thing I know, I'm walking to my car, pull my keys out, and I hear, "Ain't nothing in that car worth looking at." And I turn around. Here's the white man basically yelling at the black guys because he thinks that because the guy had to squeeze out of his vehicle, that he was looking in his vehicle wanting to steal something. And the black guy said, if you don't get the fuck out of here, ain't nobody trying to look in your car. And so they got in an escalated thing, and I'm watching this situation, and all the whole time in my head, I'm like, you son of a bitch. Like, what is your problem? That dude didn't do shit.
Yeah.
And so I go, at first I'm like, okay, don't get yourself involved in a situation. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. If I get shot, too bad. So I walk on the situation. I'm like, hey, man, all he was doing was trying to get in his car, and he told me to stay the fuck out of it. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Like, the man did nothing wrong. And they got in a little heated argument, and then they stared each other down, and the guy got in his car and left. And the black dude's like, man, fuck him, and all that. And I didn't, I wasn't getting involved in that shit because, I didn't know which way that was going to escalate. So I'm just like, what the fuck, And all I could do was come home, and tell my wife, let me tell you about this shit. And it's like it never ends. And so many people get caught up in black versus white or Hispanic. Basically 9/11, and I'm sick of that. I'm sick of it. It's like I'm so scared for my son that my wife is pregnant and my son's going to be born. I'm so scared what I'm going to leave behind for him. And it's sad because nothing has gotten better from when my mom was a kid. In the late 50s and going through the 60s, 70s. To now. It's not gotten any better. Hell, in my opinion, it's got a hell of a lot worse. Because, I wasn't around in that time, but Martin Luther King wanted equality and everything else. Now you got your own presidential candidate, talking about, he hates Muslims and to ban people and shit like that. Now, I'll put myself out on record. I hate both presidential candidates, so I don't like either one of them. So we're fucked either way, in my opinion. But at the end of the line, you're supposed to be the leader of a country potentially. You've got one that sits there and covers shit up. The other one hates, different religions. So what the fuck is that?
Yeah, and it's worth noting that they're both dealing with legal issues, with Clinton just being cleared of the FBI investigation of her having a server, which is illegal for government officials to have.
Right, and she got off with that.
Server. And then Trump, on the other hand, is in a class action lawsuit for the fraud in his Trump University, where his namesake has defrauded people of thousands of dollars. It's like $1 million class action, but so I agree with you on both sides, and stuff like that angers me because it's like first of all, there are privileges in this world. Some people have them. We all have them in different situations.
Correct.
I know if I go to the basketball court, I'll probably get picked faster than Matt would. However, after they start seeing Matt shoot the jumper, they'll probably be like, yeah, we should have picked him instead.
And I get the same thing because I'm a shooter, and basically they're like, man, you're a 6'6" white dude. Like, I'm scrawny. Like, I'm tiny as far as body mass size. And I get that shit all the time. Oh, you suck. You're white. You can't play. And then I knock down 3 or 4 threes in a row, and it's like, damn, dude can shoot. Like, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not going to look at you because you're damn, 6'9". Just because you're 6'9" don't mean you can play basketball. Your ass might not even be able to make a layup.
Yeah.
Let's go, Billy Ho.
What are y'all talking about?
We're just talking about different, situations to where, profile. Because somebody that was in the chat, basically threw out, when I was kind of going through my, what I was thinking of the Alton Sterling, basically
Yeah.
that, me being, I guess, privileged, in a certain sense, and we said that everybody's privileged in a certain degree, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, anything. It just depends on what area it is.
And I'll
Can I?
elaborate further on it
But
because it's a thing where, in the same way I would go to the basketball court and picked up quicker than Matt, if Matt and I were driving through the same neighborhood at night, I would be more likely to get picked up for an entirely different reason. So
correct.
it's like I understand where that guy is coming from, but we cannot attack each other, especially when we are united on this platform to raise awareness about the situation and come together. The thing is, when you listen to the media, whether it's Fox News, whether it's CNN, whether it's left or right, you are being indoctrinated. You're being indoctrinated by beliefs of the status quo that divide people. And the easiest way to conquer a city or conquer a people is to divide them. If people were united and realized, hey, police are killing poor people. They're killing minorities and people of color at a high rate that's very uneven with the national average of non people of color, of whites. However, if we come together and ask for police reform and we hold them accountable for what they do, make them think twice the next time they shoot. Why is it in other countries police come in with rubber bullets and with tear gas? And I know tear gas, I've never experienced it. I wasn't in the military, so maybe Matt has some experience with this. But why does it always have to be a fatal shot? Why can't you restrain somebody and have them cuffed and be okay with that? You're not fighting Avengers. You're not fighting superheroes. You're fighting people. So why don't you treat them as people,
Right.
as humans?
Let me say one quick thing about the whole military thing, just real quick. Then we got to let Q go since it's the same thing. Like the whole you shoot center. Like when I was in boot camp, it's Navy. We don't fight a lot, but when we went through the gun range, whether we did one thing, we did the simulator. Then you go in, you shoot the 9, and you shoot the shotgun. The first thing the instructors in there tell you, if you point that gun at me, I'm shooting you, and I will shoot you dead. Center mass. Now you've become the enemy. Essentially that. I'm assuming that's just the military way. This is how they think. Once you point a weapon at me, you're now the enemy. I have to take you out. But enough of that. Let's let Q.
Q, I want to hear, man. You got the floor. You go for as long as you need to.
Man, it's like I have this thing where, like, when I'm distraught, I'm upset, I'm angry. I don't really. I throw out a lot of visceral emotions. I throw out a lot of raw, uncut feelings. And I've had time to sit on this and think on this. And I need people to bear with me real quick because I want to preface this by saying that my quarrel is not with white folks. My quarrel is not with white people. My quarrel is with the crooked and corrupted white folk who pit the poor white folk against black folk for $1. That's my quarrel. And it's always been my problem. Because they didn't take us from Africa because we weren't valuable. It's the exact opposite. They took us from Africa because we were valuable. And they took us because they needed someone to build America. They needed somebody to be the foundation, and the human labor, the free African labor, built this country. They've paid reparations to the Native Americans. They've paid reparations to the Jews, even though we didn't even do anything to them. We've paid reparations to Alaskans for taking over, all this stuff. and yet we haven't been paid a dime for building this in the country. Now, do I expect a dollar to be paid? I don't. But I promise you, I will keep fighting until we can have this conversation on the table. Now, I want to get back to my point where I said they took us from Africa because they needed someone to build this country, right? All the Irish, all the Italians, all those people, they will rebuttal my point and say that, well, Africans, they had it bad, so did Italians, Germans, immigrants, all the people who came from Ellis Isle and all that stuff. And I'll give you a portion of that as a point. Because the moment that they showed you that, hey, if we indoctrinate you into whiteness and you go against the blacks, then we will give you the privileges of being white. We will give you the privileges of being white males and white females. So the Italians, Germans, yes, they might have had signs on, storefronts saying we will not serve Irish, or we will not serve German for a couple of years. But the moment that they wanted to indoctrinate those immigrants into whiteness, they accepted with no restraint. And my problem with the police in this country goes back to a quote. I cannot think of who said it, but they say the people of America want something very simple. America is good as its promise. Well, America is no good at all. So a promise from a person who's no good at all means nothing to me. We overthrow countries in every single part of the world. We take their democratic leaders out, and we mistreat our people at home. My problem with things like Alton Sterling is that not that he's dead. I'm more shocked in the fact that I'm not shocked at all. I'm more numb to this pain now that as black men and as black women, as brown men and as brown women in this country, we have continued to stay calm, be peaceful. We have continued to stay calm, stay collected. We shall overcome and all that shit. Well, the time is over for all that. Stokely Carmichael said Dr. King's biggest mistake in his nonviolence was to think that America had a conscience. Because for nonviolence to work, the person that you are trying to show that you're suffering to has to have a conscience. America has no conscience at all. For the ancestors of slaves who built this country, this is a 500-year process of trying to just get basic human rights. This is a 500-year process of trying to show people that I am a human being. I was 13 years old. I was in 8th grade, and this was the first time I knew that racism was still alive and well. There was a thing at our school where you would get dismissed by table to go get lunch, right? It was a very loosely enforced rule that nobody really followed. The white kids would get up, the Asian kids would get up, the black kids would get up, right? It was no problem until one day we started to get what we call DARE officers and, police, actually resource officers in our school. So the police officers, they were starting to sit at lunches because mass shootings were starting to become a thing. I think this was like right after some mass shooting. I can't remember what it was. But they put the police in schools now, and I got up to go get my lunch, right? They didn't really do, sometimes they would say table one go, sometimes they wouldn't. That was a day where they did. So I said, all right, I'm going to get up and go, all right? This is a microcosm of what goes on. I want you all to follow this example because this is what goes on in America. This is a perfect example. Now, the law of that school was you have to wait to be dismissed, right? I broke that law, all right? Now, under equal process, under due process, you're supposed to get a fair punishment compared to everybody else. That was not the case. The white kids were getting up. A white kid before me got up. Police officer saw the kid go past him. I get up, I get my lunch, I sit back down. Police officer comes over to me, taps me on my shoulder, and says, "Get up." And I look at him like, "What are you doing?" "What?" Like, get up. Why? I'm 13 years old, dude. I'm fucking like 6'4". I'm a black kid, and I'm being defiant. But I'm really just asking him, why do I need to get up? He's like, "I need you to get up now because you weren't supposed to do that." And I said, "You didn't see," and I can't remember the kid's name, but you didn't see him just get up right before me to do this? We both did it. So are you going to go to him? He looks at me in my face and says, "Don't worry about him. I'm worried about you." And I say, "Look at all these fucking white kids." And this is what I said. I said, "Look at all these fucking white kids doing this shit right now, and you're not going to get them. You're too worried about me, and you're letting them slip through the cracks. Either you're going to do this to all of us, or you can kiss my ass." That's what I was thinking. But in my mind, I was just like, "Oh my God, this is really happening." So I try to de-escalate the situation. I say, "Look at all these fucking white kids. You know, officer, I'm sorry I said that. Look at all these kids. Are you going to do anything about them?" He says, "No, look at me. I'm worried about you." So I get on my Rosa Parks shit, and I'm like, all right, I'm not losing. I'm not losing this fucking fight. I'm sitting down. And I stay put. I don't do anything. I don't eat. I don't touch my food. My hands are by my sides on the fucking table. My hands are on the table. And I'm sorry, but it's really hard to talk about this shit. So I'm 13, and the dude is like, all right, okay. So the police walks away, and I'm thinking, all right, cool. I just fucking won that shit. So I start to eat my food, right? So lunch ends. I go up to my fucking class. I'm about to take a damn test, and knock on the door, classroom door. My teacher opens the door up. It's 4 police officers, and they're like, "Yeah, we need him to come out here with us." And I'm like, "Fuck!" So I get up, and I'm like, what are y'all trying to do? Like, what did I do? What are y'all trying to? Y'all trying to detain me for learning now? Like, what the fuck? And they're like, "No, we're gonna write a formal arrest on you for trying to incite a riot." And I say, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you resisted arrest, and we're gonna charge you with inciting a riot." I said, "Officer, you took out no cuffs. You gave me no orders within the law. This was a school setting. I know my shit, bro. I was 13." And I knew at that time, I said, "Oh my God, they trying to do me like I'm some fucking Sambo or some shit. And they trying to railroad me." And that's exactly what the fuck happened. They called my parents in. My mom is pissed off because we had issues with the school before. They tried to tell me I was in a fucking gang and shit because I was like an artist. I was a drawer, and I would write like I had like an NWA thing that I did on when I did like an NWA mural and some shit. And they were like, "What's NWA? Is that a gang?" And we had issues like that before, where I would just be drawing things, and they would try to tie me to some bullshit. And that is when I realized that we are not freed from what our ancestors have gone through. And that is when I realized that they can put any charge on you that they want simply because you are of a darker hue. Think about this, dude. Think about this. The racists that are out there, they don't even realize that they are being puppeted by somebody who's using them to steal from them. Racism is prejudice plus power. And within the 1%, they control everything in this fucking world. And they continue to tell the poor, unintelligent white folks who subscribe to racism, they peddle them in this narrative of, "Hey, you know who's stealing your job? It's that Mexican guy over there. Hey, you know who's stealing your job? It's that black guy over there. He's stealing he's stealing everything from you. Meanwhile, he's got his hands in all your shit, and you don't even realize it because you're too worried about someone because of the fucking color of their skin.
And before you wake up, that factory has been moved overseas for cheap labor, and you're still here fighting people over inherent prejudice that they are preyed upon. That's all Donald Trump does.
Hey, but think about it. You guys will all agree when everybody saw it when Donald Trump made. I guess he was giving his speech when he said he loves the uneducated. That just goes right to Q's point. I love the uneducated. Once again, one of the 1%, one of the elites.
Right.
And it's the Muslims, it's the Mexicans, it's this, it's that, it's everybody but your fault. It's the people of color. It's them.
And at the same time, CNBC publishes a report that says the biggest terrorist threat to the United States is domestic terrorists by extreme right white groups.
White males.
KKK, neo-Nazis, anarchists, things of that nature.
All those clowns in was it Oregon?
Yeah, like dude, they don't even talk about that. A militia group took over a fucking government building.
Yes.
And they don't ever talk about that shit.
And they lived.
And they were threatening the police. If you come in here,
and we will shoot guns.
And you know what? And you know what? I'm not gonna jump out the window, but my parents raised me on the teachings of some of the greatest black men to ever live, some of the greatest black women to ever live, some of the intellectual giants of this century. And when I just read their teachings, it's parallel to everything that they say and everything that's going on in the media and in the world today. My heart goes out to Alton Sterling simply because I am so numb to it. And that's what's most powerful about this shit, is that people are becoming desensitized to seeing 6 bullets enter a man's flesh, ending his life. If you've seen that video, he's reaching out and his arm just drops because the life is gone from his body. Yeah. That is simply a microcosm of what we like to call, some people call it institutionalized racism. I call it rich elite white supremacy. It's been going on in this country for centuries. It's the whole blood running through this country. And that's what keeps this country alive.
And that was something I was touching on before you joined about how the elites that run the media, the 1%, as Matt said, they perpetuate these things. They push these things to headlines because they know people will talk about it, people will tune in, people will watch, ratings will go up, they'll get advertisement revenue, make more money, and at the end of the day, these guys are sitting back counting money while people fight and die.
And you know what, Michael?
And that's why we need to unite to shine light on things like that.
That is such a good point because they don't believe that shit. You don't realize that racists, bigots, you are a deceived people.
Yeah.
You have been bamboozled by an elite class who is pushing all this. Oh, the Negroes did this to you. Oh, the Spics did this to you. Oh, the Chinks did this shit to you. Meanwhile, you're going out
preying on your insecurities.
Preying on your insecurities of there is nothing worse in this world than fragility and over masculinity, man. It is such an awful thing because in the white mentality, in the white bigot mentality, they see a black man and they see someone who's less than them. But the rich white elite sees that bigot as nothing but a pawn in a chess game.
Exactly.
If I can make this guy,
call them white trash.
If I can make this guy go out here and kill a whole bunch of black people, then guess what that's gonna do? The black people are gonna get even pissed, and the bigots are gonna get pissed, and that's gonna divert their attention from me. One, stealing all their fucking jobs, putting cancer in all their fucking foods, robbing their children, putting them on Ritalin and heroin, funneling them into a prison industrial complex that sends them out to war. And when they come back, they can't even get the same proper health care that the fucking guys in the Senate and Congress get for just sitting on their asses all day, rejecting bills that the American people want. That's what they do. And that is why things like Alton Sterling are so infuriating, because you have the fucking bigots coming out of the woodwork to talk about black issues when every other day of the year they don't give a single flying fuck about it. What about Chicago?
Yes.
Why aren't y'all worried about Chicago? Motherfucker, there is ceasefire. There is ceasefire. There is stop the violence. Minister Farrakhan is in those streets every fucking day. You have Black Lives Matter. Like, I don't even really care for that group, but they are at least trying to do something about the problem. So for you to go and feign your outrage about how, well, what about Chicago? What are y'all doing about that shit? They have tens of thousands of people in these organizations doing work. Just because you don't pay attention to it every other day of the year doesn't mean it's not happening.
Because the media doesn't pay attention to it? Because they don't shine a positive light on that. When you watch the news, if you're a minority, if you're a person of color, it tries to make you feel inferior. Because every single thing about minorities, when you take out sports, entertainment, and every now and then a puff piece, you see something negative. Always. They blow up anything that's maybe related to ISIS or inspired by ISIS. But as far as, Dylan Ruth walking into a Baptist church in South Carolina and basically saying, I'm here to kill you guys because I hate you, I hate the color of your skin and everything you stand for, murdering people, and for the police to arrest him so calmly and treat him so...
They took him to Burger King after he killed 9 people in the church. They take him to Burger King and ask him, what do you want to eat? But if anyone who's even associated with Islam says anything or does anything that is in fact despicable, no one is debating that. The conservatives, the bigots will come out and say, we need to kill all the Muslims. We need to railroad them out. We need to gas them all. But the moment that a white boy goes into church, kills 9 black people because he's there to kill 9 black people.
He's meant to kill.
Wait a minute. It's wait a minute. We don't have all the facts yet.
Yep.
Wait a minute. We need to see more evidence.
Emotionally disturbed.
Oh, he was mentally disturbed.
Then he has the nerve to say,
issues.
they were nice people. Like,
and then they bring out their fucking coons to fucking. They always do this shit. There are rules to elite white supremacy. Rule number 1 is to deflect from the problem every time something happens. Rule number 2 is to put a black face to deflect from that problem. 3 is to put more bullshit out there to distract you from the problem. And 4 is to tell you that there's no problem at all. Yeah. That's the same shit that they did with Dylan Roof. They got this fucking coon-ass black guy out here talking about, I mean, he was my friend. I don't think he could have did that. Honestly, he was cool with me. I like him. This motherfucker just killed 9 people and you're caping for him for no reason. That means somebody's paying you in fucking butter biscuits or some shit. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but it has to end. I want to get into a solution because I have a solution. And I need y'all to feel me on this. Everyone listening, once again, I do not hate white people. I do not hate anybody. I hate corrupt people in general, and a lot of those people just happen to be white. And I don't fucking hate those people either. I just really hate what they do. I can't hate another person. My mother did not raise me like that. I cannot hate my brother that my mother did not raise me like that. I hate what evil people do. And if they happen to be white, then just so be it. If they happen to be black, then so be it. But the number one problem that we have in this country is white supremacy, and we have to discuss this on a daily basis. Shit like this makes me think, like, Kevin Durant, that is so minuscule in the universe of problems that we have. People would rather, Stephen A's ignorant ass would rather argue about Kevin Durant than actually discuss the problems in his own community. He blames everything.
I've seen this basically more about Kevin Durant, even on news shows. than it was originally. Now it's picked up, but about Alton Sterling, at the beginning, it was like, how do people not covering this?
Because they love to sweep this shit under the fucking rug, dude.
And my mom will be the first one, uh, basically she grew up right in Norristown, in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And basically it was, she didn't grow up in a racial household. According to her, they never talked about stuff like that. But you saw it everywhere even then. And she said as the centuries went, as each, decade went by, she was like, it got worse and worse and worse. And she said as the areas kind of grew to a more urban area than it was a white area, basically then the white people felt afraid. But you didn't feel afraid when you were in the majority. And it's like, to
Can I?
me, I see so many times, like, obviously me being white, I have white friends, and or I should say acquaintances to a certain extent. And even in high school, it'd be like, oh no, why are you hanging out with them? I was the only white
Oh
kid on
yeah.
the basketball team. Why are you hanging out with them? Why do you like basketball? And it's like, who gives a fuck what I like? Oh, man, go hang out, with them, and I'm not gonna say the word, but and it's like, what the fuck? Like, what is your problem? Who cares?
Pete,
Like,
Pete,
it
I
just
have
doesn't.
to. I have to one commend you for holding this forum,
Mhm.
but we need to speak to the bigger issue. And the bigger issue here is the fact that we don't have conversations like this when we need to have conversations like this. If not daily, we need to have them weekly. I'm talking
Right.
about in your inner circle, in your families, in your anywhere. You need to be able to have these conversations. It's funny how we can't even talk about racial issues without someone getting offended.
Right.
No one, look, man.
It's like a social taboo.
Oh
And
man,
that's the
dude,
thing.
you
I don't
can't
give a
even
damn who I offend. If I have an
you
opinion, I'm
can't
going to say it.
you
If you
can't
have your
even
opinion,
say
I don't have to
someone's
agree.
race without them getting offended. Oh, that guy's white. You're being racist. Oh, well, like no,
My thing
all I
is
did,
I look at it this
all I,
way. If I disagree with you, I'm going to disagree. I don't give a damn
yeah.
if you're white, black, Hispanic, whatever the case may be. If your opinion is not what I believe, then I'm going to say, hey, that's your opinion, more power to you, but that's not me.
And
And
here's
I'm
and
still going
here
to be friends with you, but I can sit there and have an intelligent conversation.
here's my issue, man, is that when things like this happen, and I just want to go on a little, just a little something here.
Yeah.
The solution to all this shit is poor people, disenfranchised, black, Latino, stop voting in presidential elections. People are going to be like, whoa, what? What? You going to let Trump win? Let me speak. Stop voting in presidential elections when these people are controlled by the 1% that we are talking about. Stop voting in these elections and giving your leverage and giving your vote to those who are controlled by those who dream up wars to send your children and your children's children to pad their pockets. Local government is the solution. Local government, voting for your aldermans, voting for your city council, voting for your police chief, voting for your governor even, that is what is going to solve a lot of these issues. Black
Because
people, disenfranchised, and poor. We need to pull out of the Democratic, the Republican, all that shit. And we need to form our own political machine that funds itself and runs itself so we can put some money in these politicians' pockets to make them do what we need to do. Stop looking to Hillary Clinton for a fucking answer when she's just going to tap dance for her donors. Stop looking at Donald Trump, who's just going to go out there and send all your jobs to Mexico and all this shit. Stop looking to these people. Look to those in your communities. Look to your grassroots leaders. Look to the people like the Ceasefire. Look to the people like the Michelle Alexanders. Look to the people like the Cornel West, the Mark Lamont Hills. Look to those intelligent, lovely people and put those people in office. Stop getting caught up in the horse race, or more like the horse shit, in my opinion, of, oh, fuck Hillary, fuck Trump. I don't give a shit about either of those people. I give a damn about my community and the well-being of my people. I give a damn about the humanity of the poor and the disenfranchised. And it just so happens that the poor and disenfranchised happen to make up brown, black, and poor white. Brown, black, and poor white. The moment that we can all come together is the moment that they have no power left. The moment that we say, fuck your election, and then, because I'll tell you what that is. That's leverage. They'll come to you, hey, y'all had the lowest turnout that we've ever seen in American history. What do y'all want? We want you to fix the police union. We want you to dismantle the Department of Justice. We want you to put people in the Department of Justice that's actually going to be as good as its name, a Department of Justice. But instead, it's a Department of Unjust. It's a Department of Injustice. And we're seeing that because every time one of these things happen, we go on these Twitter hashtag tirades about how wrong this is. And then guess what? 6 months later, after the fucking indictment doesn't come down, we're all crushed thinking, man, what can we do? Stop fucking voting is what you can do. Start voting in your local. Stop voting in your national. That's my solution. That was Stokely Carmichael's solution. That was Malcolm X's solution, the ballot or the bullet. You either vote or you got to go out there and grab a gun and do something. And you should vote locally. You should vote locally. And if they don't give us what we need, then we gotta tear this shit up. Simple as that. Take it to the governor's house.
I'm gonna backdoor the voting locally. I'm not gonna go as far as to say not vote nationally and vote or the gun. I believe voting locally is probably the only way that you're gonna see results, because voting nationally, you're basically, like they keep saying in this election, in a phrase I hate, you're picking the lesser of two evils. But when you vote locally, especially in Texas, you're choosing the sheriffs, you're choosing the city council, you're choosing the mayor, you're choosing comptrollers, you're choosing tax assessors, you're choosing judges, you're choosing all of these things, attorney generals, and those are the people who are going to affect your life directly 10 times more than the president of the United States ever will. You know, there are things that have been passed under Obama's administration, under Bush's administration, and going back before that, that affect people, but to a much lesser degree than anything that is done in your own city, by your own city council, your own aldermen. That's really where it starts, because those people, they are there in your city. You can reach out to them. You can go to their office. You can write them. You can email them. You can tweet them, and you can hold these people accountable. A great example is when people talk about Chicago and they're like, all of this violence, what the blacks aren't talking about what's going on in Chicago. No, we are talking about what's going on in Chicago. The mainstream media isn't covering. What they aren't covering is the city cover-up of the murder of Daquan McDonald, and how on on Black Friday 2015, the city of Chicago, the Black Lives Matter movement, and the people in the streets of Chicago, the End the Violence movement, they all joined. And it was so many more movements together. It was really a coalition. And they marched on Magnificent Mile in Chicago, which is basically the high fashion district where all the shops are, on Black Friday.
All the rich people.
And made sure that people could not enter stores on Black Friday, which is a huge hit to the economics of Chicago, a huge hit to the economics of this nation. You know, we are a consumer society. You want to make people pay attention, you have to be strategic. And them doing that hit their pockets, which made them listen. Then at the same time, they hit the ballots, and the attorney general, the district attorney, she was voted out of office. The same district attorney that covered up the shooting of Daquan McDonald. And the mayor, Rahm Emanuel, former member of Obama's cabinet, Democrat, when he comes up for election at the end of this term, he is going to have a very difficult time winning the city of Chicago back, because people remember that he saw this video before the election, but it was withheld before he was reelected. It was withheld before a lot of people were reelected. And a lot of these people are going to be voted out of the office. That's where you make change. And I feel as though I spoke to somebody earlier today who was really angry about it and wanted to riot and wanted to destroy stuff. And I had to make a point of we're doing things over and over expecting different results. That's textbook insanity. There were riots in 68 at the Chicago Democratic National Convention. There were Watts riots in Los Angeles. There were riots in LA in the early 90s. There were riots in Ferguson, riots in Baltimore, riots all over the place. But riots don't solve anything. Riots perpetuate and actually reinforce the idea that we are inherently violent, that we are inherently destructive, we are inherently this, inherently that, all negative stereotypes. But when we show up strategically in a place of significance, like they did in Chicago on Black Friday, in front of all of the luxury stores where people could not enter because they were afraid by the sheer numbers of people out there protesting. They didn't even want to be there. So they decided to go home and not spend their money. When we get strategic and go protest at the governor's mansion, protest at the mayor's office, at City Hall, at the police headquarters, when we protest outside of news outlets and places that attract the news, because they're there for ratings. They're there because they want something to happen. They want somebody to fight. They want guns to go off and people to get shot. Because, again, they're about their ratings and they're about their money coming from advertising revenue and coming from clicks and retweets and shares and likes. But when we do it strategically and use it to our advantage, that's when we get stuff done. So, yeah, I am completely agreed that it starts locally, but we have to be smart. We have to be strategically, and more than anything, we have to be unified. Because there are people there. I have, for instance, my best friend is an attorney with the Justice Department at a university here in Houston. My best friend is Persian. He was born in Iran and he grew up here. We met in high school. He's become a lawyer. And what he does for a living is he goes and reopens cases, examines cases for juveniles and young people of color, young adults who can't get jobs, who can't vote, who can't get into universities, all because they have felony or misdemeanor convictions from when they were in middle school, from when they were in high school, for things like truancy, for things like talking back to teachers, for things like fighting, for things like talking out of turn. My friend has a client, his current client is actually high profile and he's gotten the media, and this kid is basically being prosecuted because the money he chose to pay with, a kid whose family is poor enough to qualify for free lunch, qualify for public assistance, took money to school to pay for lunch, and they accused them of the money being counterfeit. And so now they're charging this kid with a felony. I think they're trying to push it federally of passing counterfeit money. And the long story short is they found out that the money wasn't even counterfeit.
And
so
you know what? I think
it's a system where we all have our own prejudices, we all have our own biases. However, there need to be checks and balances of the people we are putting in positions of power. What biases are they holding? What prejudiceness are they holding? Because I've met some good cops, but we need more.
Because I'm about to go, but I want to say this before I go. In the 1960s, after all these riots that he so eloquently stated in Detroit, Watts, all this stuff, right? They put together a group called the Kerner Commission. The Kerner Commission was a group of people who tried to get to the bottom of why all these black people were rioting. What are y'all doing? A lot of people think black people were just rioting because they were just mad, right? No, it wasn't.
LBJ.
It wasn't that simple. The Kerner Commission was put together to figure that out, and what they figured out was black people were pissed off and rioting because the government had promised them so much and delivered on not a thing. They gave us the Civil Rights Act, they gave us the Voting Act, and ever since then they've been trying to take it back every single day. They've been trying to put in, fucking rules and regulations on, voter IDs and all this shit, simply
But
racist laws.
the
And
thing about that was that Lyndon B. Johnson was the president at the time, and he rejected the commission's recommendations anyway.
yeah, because Lyndon B. Johnson is a Democrat, but Lyndon B. Johnson is just as racist as anybody else in the fucking White House has been in there. So he said, "Oh, okay." So guess what? They did it again. I think they did it in the early '90s, and they came back. I think it was to the first Bush, where they said, "Bush, they're mad for the same reason, and we have figured out that it's worse than it was in '68." Worse than it was in '68, and this is the 1990s. So how do you think it is now? Ruby Bridges, for anyone who doesn't know that story, I think she was the first black girl to be integrated into I think it was Little Rock, Arkansas. She said, I think it was maybe like 2012, 2013. She was speaking at a school, and she said, I don't know, somebody asked her a question actually, and she was like, Ruby, do you think racism has gotten better? A hush goes over the entire crowd, and she takes a second, and she looks very bewildered by the question, and she looks at the girl who asked the question right in her face, and she says, "Child, I hate to say it, but racism is worse than it was when I was a little girl." And the girl was like, "How?" She said, "Because it's refined and it is invisible. It's refined and invisible in the ways that they will do slick things. They will pass through laws, and it won't be out in the open. It won't be some guy. See, some people think, some white folks and even some black folks think that racism is dwindled down to a guy in a KKK hoodie screaming, 'Get out of here! We don't want you here.' No, sir. Racism is lawmakers saying, all right, we need to gentrify this area, remove all these black folks so we can make the area better. We need to make it better. And by better, they mean whiter and more expensive. So Brooklyn in New York, it is mostly all Jewish, all white now. It was a historically black neighborhood. Harlem, same thing. Jews, all white. And that is because they are trying to tell you that black people, you are no longer needed in this country for it to survive. And that is why, and even though he'll disagree with me, I say you don't need to vote for a president until something happens. Congress is really what controls this nation. That is how you get a law passed. You have to go through 365 people. So until you can institute 365 people to do good by you, then I wouldn't even worry about the president, because the president is not going to get nothing passed that Congress don't want to be passed. So worry about who your congressmen are. Worry about who your aldermen are. And I'm going to leave you all with this, because I have to go. We're going to try it the calculated way. We were asking with Garvey, we were asking with Martin, we were asking with Medgar, we're even asking with Farrakhan. If we have to ask again after we do the tactical approach, then Langston Hughes' poem will come true. Negroes, meek and mild, humble, be aware of the day that they are no longer that. I gotta go.
It's a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Guys, you got anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I think he summed it up perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, everybody out there, I say pray for America, because we need each other to get through this, and something has to be done. This can't continue to go on. We cannot allow this to be the new normal.
I hope in some way, somehow, this video reached even if it reaches one person that wasn't educated about all of this and just doesn't have a clear mind, that they have a better understanding for the need of everyone to come together as a whole, not white versus black, anything else. I mean, it's basically going to be a destroyed America if we don't fix it now. And with that, basically, I want to wrap it up. Thank you guys. Thanks to Q for coming on as always. Be safe out there, everyone, and just pray that justice comes for Alton Sterling and especially his son and just the rest of America that's grieving right now. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.